Welcome to Through a Glass Darkly Radio. You're listening to us on United Public Radio. The intro song was Mark of the Doomslayer by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. Somebody said that one of the intro songs reminded them of Tool. By the way, you have great taste if you like Tool, but it's probably my favorite band. But which song was it? Was it the one with the woman's voice? Which one was it? If you can vaguely describe it. Actually, I can probably make it easy for everybody. Was it this one? This one? Or this one? I guess you could say that the last one was this one. I don't think it was that. It didn't sound at all like Tool, but second to last. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. So I think the second to last. Yeah, this one. Just somebody confirmed that the very last one I just played was the one that sounded like Tool. Okay, yeah, that was the easy one. That was the easy way to do it. Okay, the one with the lady singing, because there was only one with a woman singing. So, all right, that knocks that out. Sorry for getting there. I was kind of in other quick news. I was kind of worried that I wasn't going to hit 20,000 by the end of December. Now I'm feeling a lot more optimistic by it. So knock on wood so that I don't jinx it. But, we're, I don't know, call it a little bit less than 230 subscribers from hitting 20,000. So for folks who've subscribed recently, thank you very much. For folks who've been subscribed for a very long time, please double check that you're subscribed because YouTube likes to unsubscribe folks for whatever reason. And seriously, there's at least 6 people here who've had that happen to them. So just please double check that. The other thing that is worth mentioning is I choose the topics, but for this radio live stream and the radio live stream only, I use AI to write the scripts. I review the scripts. I make the AI write it a lot, but the AI wrote the script. So if you don't like that, I totally understand. It's the only thing on this channel where I use AI for like that sort of content. Sure, I use it for thumbnails, but for everything else, interviews and stuff like that, it's just me and the guest. So, although I will be using an AI avatar for Peter Carroll, otherwise you would have seen a black screen because he doesn't like to show his face in interviews. It's like a chaos magic thing, apparently. So, and he doesn't want people in his local village to recognize him. It's very private. So, otherwise it would have been a black screen, but it's a test. We'll see. I came up with kind of the creepiest possible, not creepiest possible, but like vaguely uncanny valley like sort of thing. So anyway, all right, let's get started. And as I'm sure folks have been waiting for me to get into it. And in fact, there's a lot of content. So if I wait, it might take me a lot longer than I anticipate. So here we go. The shadow biome and non-human intelligences, a coexistent hidden biosphere. Are we alone, not just in the cosmos, but even here on Earth? An emerging speculative hypothesis suggests that non-human intelligences might inhabit a shadow biome or hidden biosphere coexisting with our known ecology. This shadow biome refers to life forms, possibly including intelligent entities so divergent in biology, perception, or material basis that they elude standard detection. In other words, NHIs might not necessarily arrive from distant stars. They could constitute an alternative terrestrial biosphere that remains largely undetected due to fundamental differences from life as we know it. Such differences may be perceptual, i.e., existing outside the range of human senses or cognition, biochemical, operating on an unfamiliar biochemistry or physical dimension, or material, composed of matter or energy states we do not normally recognize as life. Let's say plasma, for instance. This integrated podcast explores the speculative relationship between the shadow biome concept and NHIs, developing the hypothesis that advanced non-human beings might quietly coexist with us on Earth. Drawing on biology, physics, consciousness studies, and ufology, we will examine historical antecedents to this idea, documented anomalous phenomena, from orb sightings to unexplained ecosystem events. I think I just invented a new word. I was about to say ecocosm. That's a pretty cool word. I don't know what it means, but anyway, philosophical reflections on the limits of human perception and models of what an unseen NHI ecology or infrastructure might entail. We also discuss emerging strategies for detecting such hidden life and consider the profound implications for astrobiology and human self-understanding if we confirm that alien intelligences share our planetary biosphere. The inquiry is inherently interdisciplinary and speculative, but proceeds in a scholarly spirit of epistemic humility. Given how little of reality our current methods may actually reveal, open-minded exploration of a possible shadow biosphere of NHIs is a bold but defensible exercise. So let's start with historical context and early speculations. Human cultures have long imagined hidden beings sharing our world. Folklore and mythology abound with others living in parallel realms, fairies, elementals, jinn, and spirits just beyond ordinary perception. Such entities were often conceived as co-inhabiting Earth unseen, much as today's shadow biome hypothesis suggests. For example, medieval and early modern European folklore placed fairies in wilderness just beyond the hedgerow, an evocative metaphor echoed by science writer David Toomey in describing a shadow biosphere, like the realm of fairies and elves just beyond the hedgerow. Many indigenous traditions likewise spoke of little people or nature spirits embedded in the landscape. While modern science set aside these stories as superstition, they illustrate a recurring intuition. Perhaps unseen intelligences dwell alongside us. By the 19th and 20th centuries, as science advanced, a few thinkers revisited such ideas in new terms. The Victorian science mystic Charles Fort collected volumes of anomalous reports, hinting that unexplained phenomena, falls of strange animals, mysterious lights, might evidence extra-normal forces or beings. Early science fiction also toyed with coexistent beings. H.G. Wells' The Invisible Man of 1897 imagined a man out of phase with normal vision, and other writers speculated on creatures of higher dimensions or subtle matter. In 1969, the French scientist Jacques Vallée published Passport to Magonia, suggesting UFO encounters could be a modern mask for the same phenomenon once labeled fairies or demons. Okay. An intelligence sharing our world but interpreted through different cultural lenses. Vallée and others coined terms like ultraterrestrials to denote entities that are from Earth or in a parallel reality of Earth, rather than extraterrestrials, explaining the folkloric continuity of such encounters. Modern academia largely ignored these fringe ideas, yet intriguingly, a parallel strand of legitimate scientific conjecture emerged regarding undetected life on Earth. In 1953, biochemist Stanley Miller noted that life might have alternative biochemical pathways, but it was in the early 2000s that the concept of a shadow biosphere gained serious articulation. Philosopher Carol Cleland and colleagues argued that life may have originated on Earth more than once, yielding organisms with a radically different biochemistry that standard biology simply hasn't recognized. This provided a new scientific framing for the idea of hidden coexistent life, not fairies or phantoms, but weird life, to use astrobiologist Paul Davies' term, that is physical yet so non-standard that it would not be detected by life detection tools targeted at standard Terran biochemistry. In effect, science began hypothesizing its own version of invisible neighbors, microbes, or other organisms here on Earth, unseen because they do not fit our assumptions of what life is. This historical context shows that while the NHI shadow biome hypothesis might sound radical, it synthesizes threads from both long-standing human imagination and cutting-edge astrobiological theory. Throughout history, humans suspected they might not be alone on Earth. Today, a few scientists and philosophers are revisiting that suspicion with new language and evidence. The stage is set to explore how shadow biospheres of NHI could exist undetected and what that would mean for science and society. Okay, so the shadow biosphere, life as we don't know it. Modern biology defines life by a familiar biochemistry. Carbon-based cells using DNA, RNA, and approximately 20 standard amino acids requiring water and others, etc. But what if alternative life forms evolve separately here? The shadow biosphere hypothesis posits exactly that, a parallel biology on Earth with a different origin or chemistry. Such life could be microbial or even complex, yet we failed to see it because our detection methods, DNA sequencing, cultural growth, microscopy are biased to known life's characteristics. Cleland notes that when microbiologists analyze a soil or water sample, they assume any life will have DNA, ribosomal RNA, etc. So anything lacking those, for instance, using a different genetic molecule, would simply not register. As she succinctly put it, you couldn't detect anything that wasn't almost identical to familiar Earth life with standard tests. Thus, if life started more than once on this planet, its descendants might still be squirming around among known microbes, yet completely overlooked. What clues might betray such weird life? Researchers have overlooked or have urged looking for unexplained anomalies in nature that could be footprints of an alternative biology. One famous example is desert varnish, a dark, shiny coating on rocks in arid regions from the Sahara to Antarctica. Desert varnish contains concentrations of arsenic, manganese, and iron that cannot be explained by any known geochemical or biological process given the substrate rock. Cleland has suggested desert varnish might be a metabolic byproduct of shadow organisms unknown to us. Her message is that scientists should seek out such anomalies, things that don't quite seem to fit because maybe they don't fit. In other words, rather than brushing off weird results as noise, we should consider whether they indicate an entirely different kind of life operating in parallel. Indeed, many odd extremophile microbes have been discovered that push the limits of familiar life, from bacteria that live in battery acid to those in nuclear waste. Yet these still use orthodox biochemistry. The shadow biosphere concept asks, what about organisms that don't? Multiple avenues for biochemical divergence have been proposed. Life's building blocks could be different. For instance, DNA on Earth uses 4 nucleotide bases, but there are other naturally occurring bases. Could some life use a different genetic alphabet? Proteins on Earth use 20 amino acids, all of a specific chirality, or left-handed amino acids, right-handed sugars. But over 100 amino acids exist in nature. A shadow life form might use a different subset or even mirror image molecules, or right-handed amino acids. As Harvard's Dimitar Suslov and George Church have speculated, an organism with opposite chirality, or mirror life, could exist, and we'd likely be blind to it unless we specifically looked for the havoc its viruses cause in our lab-grown mirror cells. Other scenarios include using a different solvent than water or alternative elements. The controversial 2010 report of bacteria GFAJ-1 that seemed to use arsenic instead of phosphorus in its DNA was a high-profile attempt to find such life, though later refuted. Even the common elements might be arranged in unknown ways. As Cleland said, we have good theoretical reasons for believing life could be at least modestly different. We don't know how different it could be. Notably, an interdisciplinary team of scientists led by astrobiologist Paul Davies published a 2009 paper outlining signatures of a shadow biosphere. They argued that if life arises readily under the right conditions, it might have arisen multiple times on Earth, meaning one or more shadow biospheres could exist even today. The authors suggest concrete search strategies. For example, looking for organisms that violate known limits of life, like microbes living at temperatures greater than 130 degrees Celsius, beyond the 122 degrees Celsius record of any known hyperthermophile. Finding microbes thriving at, say, 150 degrees Celsius or centigrade, where familiar proteins would denature, could indicate a separate life lineage with different biochemistry. Similarly, balloons could sample the upper atmosphere for cells. Any microbes permanently living at extreme altitudes might belong to an overlooked lineage. Other environments to scour include high plateaus, Antarctic permafrost, the deep subsurface, and uranium mines, places where life is sparse or conditions unusual, making it more likely a different form of life might carve out a niche unmolested by familiar organisms. In essence, search where life shouldn't be and see if something is there. Davies et al. Also pointed to a curious imbalance in Earth's carbon cycle. There is 5% more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that can be accounted for by known life's respiration. One speculative explanation is that unknown life forms contribute that excess carbon dioxide by burping out carbon we don't realize is biogenic. Additionally, scientists have cataloged many environmental microbes that refuse to grow in lab conditions. We can culture less than 1% of microbial species. We often assume these are just finicky versions of familiar life, but what if some truly cannot grow in our media because their biochemistry is fundamentally incompatible? Such unculturable microbes might include shadow life hiding in plain sight. As one scientific journalist quipped, maybe these microbes, really are just reticent, but we should wonder harder. The implications of finding a shadow biosphere on Earth would be enormous. First, it would prove that life is not a once-in-a-universe fluke, but rather a probable outcome given the right conditions. As Davies said, if life started more than once on Earth, we could be virtually certain the universe is teeming with it. A second genesis here means that the cosmic dice of biology rolled a winning number twice on one planet, strongly suggesting life may emerge on countless worlds. Conversely, it would be humbling, despite all our advanced science, we would have overlooked an entire domain of life, sharing the planet with us. It calls to mind biologist Craig Ventnor's pointed remark. We're looking for life on Mars, and we don't even know what's on Earth. A shadow biosphere discovery would force us to rethink how we search for life elsewhere. If our Mars rovers or exoplanet telescopes only look for Earth-like biosignatures, they could miss aliens even if those aliens operate under our very rover's wheels. As The Guardian reported, the lesson is stark. If the masked laboratories of modern science failed to spot alien life under our noses for eons, our strategies for hunting ET life need a radical overhaul. In summary, the shadow biosphere hypothesis in biology provides a plausible foundation for the broader idea of a hidden coexistent biosphere. It demonstrates that life could be ubiquitous yet unrecognized due to our perceptual and methodological limits. From this foundation, it's a natural, if bold, leap to propose that among those alternate life forms might be not just microbes, but intelligent organisms, NHIs with perhaps separate evolutionary heritage or origin. To assess that, we must expand the discussion from pure biochemistry into other realms. Physics. Could intelligences exist in forms or dimensions we can't easily perceive? And consciousness. Could perception itself be a barrier between us and co-located intelligences? Before that, we will examine whether any empirical anomalies or cases hint at such NHIs in our environment. So first, what we're going to do is look at the material and physical divergence, higher dimensions, and hidden matter. If NHIs inhabit a coexistent biosphere, why are they so undetected? One possibility is that they are made of physical substrates or exist in dimensions that elude human senses. Modern physics tells us that reality may have more layers than meet the eye. For instance, only about 5% of the universe's matter and energy is ordinary visible matter. The rest is mysterious dark matter and dark energy that we infer only indirectly. It's sobering that 95% of the content of the universe is effectively invisible to us, interacting via gravity but not electromagnetically. While dark matter isn't known to form complex structures and likely doesn't interact chemically to support life, this fact underscores how limited the visible world is. Additionally, the electromagnetic spectrum is vast, yet our eyes only pick up a tiny sliver, and that tiny sliver is approximately 0.0035% of it. As neuroscientist David Eagleman notes, if the EM spectrum spanning radio to gamma rays were a road 1,000 miles long, the portion visible to humans is mere feet of that journey. In other words, we naturally perceive only a fraction of reality's signals. Countless phenomena could be around us: infrared patterns, ultraviolet fluorescences, magnetic fields, infrasound vibrations, utterly imperceptible without instruments. Some researchers take this further to suggest there might be entire realms of existence outside our perception. Eagleman muses that we might share space with forms of matter, energy, or even consciousness that we have not yet detected. A particularly intriguing notion that NHIs could exist in higher spatial dimensions, or is that NHIs could exist in higher spatial dimensions. Humanity is accustomed to 3 spatial dimensions, with time sometimes counted as a 4th. However, theoretical physics, particularly string theory, posits additional dimensions beyond the familiar 3. These dimensions are curled up or otherwise inaccessible to us, but mathematically possible. It's been hypothesized in popular and scientific discourse that an advanced intelligence might occupy or utilize a 4th spatial dimension, making them effectively invisible or only partially visible in 3D. This idea can be illustrated by the classic analogy of flatland. Imagine a 2-dimensional world on a sheet of paper. If a 3-dimensional being, say a sphere, passed through flatland's 2D inhabitants, or flatland 2D inhabitants would only see a cross-section of the sphere, appearing, changing shape, and disappearing, perhaps a mysterious growing and shrinking circle. They would never perceive the full 3D sphere at once. Analogously, we 3D beings may only see slices or projections of a hypothetical 4D entity. A 4-dimensional NHI could potentially pass through our space with only fleeting or odd morphing manifestations appearing to us, then vanishing. As one science communicator explains, if a 4D creature entered our world, only a part of it would appear, materializing out of nowhere. We'd never be able to see all of it at once. Such an entity might seem to appear, disappear inexplicably, or change form, which is a hallmark of many UFO reports where objects vanish or metamorphose in defiance of normal physics. To the extent NHIs might leverage higher dimensions or exotic physics, it could explain various anomalous abilities often attributed to UFOs or other entities. For instance, the ability to fade in and out of view, to pass through solid matter, or to perform extreme maneuvers with only visible means of propulsion. With no visible means of propulsion. A 4D or otherwise extra-dimensional technology could make an object largely imperceptible in 3D or allow it to bypass 3D obstacles, much as a 3D hand can pluck an object out of a 2D plane without disturbing the plane. Indeed, a 4D being moving in our space could appear to violate conservation laws from our perspective, because it might draw on momentum or energy in dimensions we don't access. While all this remains speculative, it is grounded in serious scientific contemplation of higher dimensions. Physicists have found indirect evidence hinting that 4D effects can be observed in lower dimensions. For instance, certain quantum Hall experiments show patterns explainable by a 4th dimensional influence. If extra dimensions exist, it's not outlandish to wonder if some advanced life, native or alien, could exploit them for cloaking or transiting in ways that render them effectively invisible to human observation. Another angle of material divergence is the possibility of life based on exotic states of matter or energy. Could there be plasma based life forms, for example, that inhabit environments like the upper atmosphere or even planetary magnetospheres? Some scientists have speculated on self organizing plasma structures that might meet criteria for life, for instance, metabolism, reproduction, in environments too hostile for normal organisms. Reports of ball lightning and luminous orbs have sometimes led to theories of plasma life. Entities made of electric and magnetic fields and ionized gas flickering into view as glowing spheres. While mainstream consensus treats ball lightning as a physical electro phenomena, a few researchers, mostly on the fringes, have pondered whether such sentient plasma beings could exist in planetary atmospheres or even interstellar space. Notably, the Hesdallen lights in Norway, recurring orbs of light studied over decades, exhibit behavior that some describe as quasi-organismic. They can split into smaller balls, merge, and even seem to respond to observers, all while emitting power on the order of kilowatts. Measurements have suggested these light balls sometimes behave in a self-regulated manner thermally and can eject smaller luminous spheres, traits one might metaphorically associate with a parent entity and offspring. The Hesdallen research team cautiously proposed an electrochemical plasma model, but many details remain unexplained. If an intelligence could exist as a complex plasma, it might well elude our recognition of it as alive. It's tantalizing that UFO signals often involve glowing orbs or craft surrounded by plasma like auras. Perhaps the glow isn't just a byproduct of propulsion, but the form of the entity itself. At an even more speculative extreme, NHIs could potentially consist of something like dark matter clumps or other exotic particles. Since dark matter, which makes up approximately 27% of the universe, interacts gravitationally but not electromagnetically, any dark matter structures around us pass undetected through ordinary matter. It is highly theoretical, but if dark matter can form stable, complex configurations currently unknown, a dark matter life form could literally be overlapping our space even as we walk through it, ghost like. So far, we have no evidence that dark matter can yield chemistry or life, and most physicists would doubt it due to the lack of interactions needed for complexity. Still, it underscores how 95% of reality is invisible to our senses, leaving ample conceptual room for surprise. In summary, physics opens the mind to ways intelligent beings might coexist unseen through extra dimensions that render them only partially visible. Though forms of matter or energy outside our narrow perceptual range or through exploitation of natural phenomena like plasmas that we observe but misinterpret. These scenarios align intriguingly with many UFO characteristics: sudden appearance, disappearance, shape-shifting lights, passing through obstacles. While speculative, they suggest that an advanced NHI civilization might achieve a kind of effective invisibility or indetectability by inhabiting states of matter or dimensions we barely grasp. This could be a natural property of their being or a technology they deploy to remain hidden. To determine if we are indeed sharing space with these intelligences, however, requires not only physical theory, but also a consideration of perception and cognition. Because even if NHIs leave traces, we must be open and minded enough to notice and interpret them correctly. Let's move on to perception and cognition and explore the limits of human awareness. Even if NHIs or a shadow biome have physical presence, humans might fail to perceive them due to limitations in our sensory and cognitive apparatus. The question, why don't we see them, might have a simple answer: we weren't built to. Evolution crafted human senses to navigate a narrow band of reality useful for survival, not to provide an objective view of all that exists. Cognitive scientists point out that our perception works less like a clear window and more like a selectively tuned interface. Donald Hoffman's interface theory of perception argues that species evolved to see what they need, not what is real. In fact, Veridical perception of the truth can be detrimental to fitness if it's too much information. As Hoffman writes, quote, our perceptions of space-time and objects have been shaped by natural selection to hide the truth and guide adaptive behaviors. Perception is an adaptive interface, end quote. Just as computer desktop interfaces show handy icons rather than the flurry of binary data under the hood, our senses show us a simplified world that aids our survival but conceals the underlying reality. So if NHIs do not trigger any of our built-in icons, for instance, they emit no visible light, no audible sound, no smell or touch, or their behaviors fall outside patterns we evolved to notice, we could simply be blind and deaf to their presence. We literally might not notice a new phenomenon if our brain has no framework for it, a concept illustrated by anecdotes of indigenous people allegedly not seeing colonial ships offshore because the shapes were utterly outside their experience. Though the literal truth of such tales is debated, the principle remains: perception is filtered. Beyond raw sense organs, our Umwelt, to use biologist Jakob von Oikel's term, defines the world we experience. Every creature has its own Umwelt, a subjective slice of reality determined by its sensory capacities and brain processing. Oikel provocatively noted that no species' Umwelt is more real than another's. Humans have no privileged access to objective reality, just our human-based experiential world. This is a humbling realization. There could be features of the environment blaring loudly all around us that we simply cannot detect. Much as bees perceive ultraviolet patterns on flowers that we do not, or dogs smell layers of scent imperceptible to us. Our world is a construct of our senses and brain. If NHIs exist outside that construct, say communicating via ultraviolet flashes or electromagnetic fields, or moving too fast for our visual persistence, or being microscopic or macroscopically camouflaged, we might not register them as living beings. There's also the aspect of active cognitive filtering. Human attention and expectation play a big role in what we notice. It's been suggested that we often see what we expect to see, and our brains can literally edit out what doesn't fit. An extreme example is the psychological phenomenon of inattentional blindness, where people engrossed in one task, like counting basketball passes in an experiment, failed to notice a person in a gorilla suit walking through the scene. On a grander scale, if our culture and science have no concept for a certain kind of entity, observers encountering it might misidentify it as something familiar or ignore it altogether. In the past, an electrical aura around a person might be dismissed as imagination or divine halo. Today, someone might capture an odd translucent form on camera and assume it's a glitch or lens artifact rather than a life form. Our language of description biases how we report anomalies, which in turn biases whether they are taken seriously. Philosophers have long wrestled with the idea that reality as perceived is a mental representation only. Immanuel Kant distinguished between the phenomenal world, reality as we experience it, and the noumenal world, reality in itself, which we can never truly know directly. The existence of NHIs might lie largely in that gap. They could be part of the noumenal world that doesn't nearly project into our phenomenal world. Alternatively, some thinkers suggest the interaction might be two-way. Advanced NHIs could be capable of manipulating our perception so that even when they are near, we either fail to see them or see something else. Notably, Jacques Vallée's research into UAP encounters led him to conclude that the phenomenon does not seem to make any distinction between physical and psychological effects. It produces both. The boundaries we draw between the mental and the physical don't seem to be observed by the phenomenon. In many close encounter cases, witnesses report surreal, dreamlike elements mixed with physical evidence, as if the experience is part objective and part staged in the witness's mind. For instance, Valet and others have documented incidents where multiple people see a UFO, but cameras capture something different or nothing at all, suggesting the image might have been projected into consciousness rather than photons hitting the retina as they normally would. A striking recent example comes from an account via Dr. Gary Nolan. A family in France saw a huge craft above their car. Other motorists didn't react, and photographs taken show only a small star-like object, not the large craft perceived. This hints that the phenomenon had manipulated vision, effectively controlling what the witnesses saw. If NHIs possess such capabilities, possibly via telepathic interface or advanced psychoactive technology, then our perception can never be trusted as a straightforward record of their presence. They can be present, but inducing in us an image of an empty room or disguising themselves as something mundane. Hence the trope of aliens employing camouflage or mind tricks. All of this is to emphasize the bottleneck of human perception and cognition is a critical factor in the shadow biome hypothesis. NHIs might not be invisible in absolute terms, but they could be invisible to us. Our senses miss most of the electromagnetic spectrum. Our interpretive brain may dismiss anomalies with a that's weird, and then move on. We also have psychological and cultural biases, the will to disbelieve or ridicule strange observations that cause misreporting or non-reporting. If an ecologist stumbles on a truly bizarre organism that doesn't fit any known taxonomy, would they publish it or assume an error? History shows many initially rejected discoveries, from meteorites, i.e. stones falling from the sky, to gorillas, quote-unquote mythical monsters, faced skepticism. Thus, part of developing strategies to detect a shadow biosphere of NHIs involves training ourselves to broaden our perception and question our assumptions. It means asking, as Cleland advocates, not just eureka, but also, that's weird, could it be life? It also might require expanding human sensory reach via technology, so cameras, sensors across spectra, AI pattern recognition, to catch what we normally would overlook. In short, acknowledging the subjectivity and narrowness of human perception is key to hypothesizing that an undetected reality might lie beyond it, and taking steps to peek beyond the veil. All right, so let's look at evidence from ufology and anomalous phenomena. While the shadow biosphere concept arose from biology, many people have linked it to the decades of reports from ufology and other anomalous research. If NHIs share our planet, one would expect there would be some observable effects or encounters, however fleeting or rare. Indeed, a growing number of scientists and officials are taking the UAP phenomena issue seriously in recent years, acknowledging that something unexplained is physically present in our skies and oceans. Could some UAP encounters actually be glimpses of our shadow cohabitants going about their business? Several categories of cases and phenomena can be examined as potential evidence or at least illustrative of an NHI shadow biome. So we'll start first with luminous orbs and Earth lights. Mysterious floating balls of lights have been reported worldwide, often in specific locales. These include the Hessdalen lights in Norway, the Marfa lights in Texas, the Min lights in Australia, and many others. In Hessdalen, for example, locals have observed semi-regular orbs of various colors appearing in a valley, which have been scientifically monitored since the 1980s. These orbs exhibit patterns like splitting apart, merging, accelerating rapidly, or hovering, and emitting structural spectra. Scientists measured one instance's power output at up to 19 kilowatts, far beyond a simple torch glow. Some orbs appeared solid on radar, even ejecting smaller orbs, yet then vanish. No conventional explanation, geologic, piezoelectric effect, plasma ball lightning, etc., fully accounts for their behavior over such time frames and repetition. While not proof of intelligence, the self-organizing, seemingly responsive qualities of these light phenomena have led to speculation that they could be some form of life or technology. Residents of Hesdalen sometimes describe the lights as if they exhibit curiosity or playfulness, approaching or retreating when signaled, though such anecdotes are hard to verify. At the very least, these enduring, anomalous, luminous phenomena show that our planet still produces effects not fully understood by science, which could conceivably tie into a hidden ecosystem. Then there's UAP encounters and quote unquote craft. Since the mid 20th century, innumerable reports have described structured objects, disks, cylinders, triangles, etc., flying or maneuvering in ways exceeding known human technology. For our purposes, the interesting point is how these objects behave in relation to being possibly indigenous. Fighter pilot accounts, such as the famous 2004 USS Nimitz incident, detail a tic-tac shaped object that exhibited extraordinary speed, no visible means of propulsion, and an ability to descend from 60,000 feet to sea level in seconds. Importantly, pilots and radar in that case also observed disturbance of water as if something under the ocean was present. The tic-tac was seen hovering above a round disturbance in the water, as though perhaps interacting with a submerged object or entry point. Such transmedium behavior, moving seamlessly through air and water, is frequently reported now, and even the Pentagon's UAP office acknowledges UAP that submerge into water. Journalist Jeremy Corbell in 2024 released footage of a spherical jellyfish UAP at a U.S. base that traversed over a body of water, actuated a controlled descent, submerging into the water after approximately 17 minutes. After approximately 17 minutes, the UAP reemerged and shot off at high speed. The object also apparently jammed sensors and had no heat or propulsive signatures. Such stories suggest UAP may have underwater operations or habitats consistent with the idea of an unseen civilization. Indeed, the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis entertained by Lomas et al. Notes that many UAP are reported around oceans and lakes, raising the possibility of undersea bases or colonies where where NHI could hide. If NHIs evolved on Earth separately, taking to the seas, which are vast and still poorly explored by humans, might be a strategic choice. It's notable that the deepest ocean trenches and extensive subterranean caves remains more alien to us than the surface of Mars. A technologically capable species could remain elusive there. Modern naval sonar has occasionally tracked extremely fast underwater objects, USOs, that defy known marine craft capabilities, hinting that something moves beneath the waves beyond our understanding, possibly anomalous to how dolphins might puzzle over the occasional submarine. Then there's disappearing and elusive creatures. In a more terrestrial vein, there are cryptozoological reports of strange animals or humanoids that seem to flicker in and out of view. For instance, tales of Sasquatch Bigfoot often include descriptions of the creature appearing and vanishing suddenly, leaving some researchers to speculate about interdimensional aspects, while others simply note the difficulty of preserving camouflaged animals in dense forest. In Latin America, folklore of Duende and reports of small, elusive humanoids similarly could be interpreted through a shadow biome lens, not mythical imps, but perhaps real, intelligent beings adept at staying hidden. The lack of hard evidence of such creatures in our fossil or genetic record is problematic for a biological hypothesis, unless they represent a branch that diverges so separately as to be effectively invisible. So, for instance, burying their dead in ways we haven't discovered, etc. While these cryptid accounts remain unverified, they contribute to a cultural data set of anomalous ecosystem interactions. For instance, footprints that start and end inexplicably, or animals reacting with fear to an unseen presence. Then there are anomalous ecosystem behaviors. NHI could impact other species in subtle ways that we might notice without seeing the NHIs directly. For example, there are numerous cases in UFO literature of animal reactions: dogs barking frantically at empty air during UFO sightings, livestock panicking without visible cause, or whole forests falling silent, the so-called Oz factor of eerie quiet when a strange object appears. If NHIs operate in nature, perhaps wildlife senses them even when we do not. An interesting case occurred in Alaska, a region rife with disappearances and folklore. The so called Alaska Triangle has seen over 20,000 unexplained human vanishings since the 1970s in a specific corridor. Some attribute this to dangerous terrain or mundane causes, but others have speculated about a mysterious force. While purely conjectural, one might ask if an established NHI presence could account for such an outlier statistic. For instance, unknown predators or even deliberate abductions by an underground group. Historically, native Tlingit legends of the area spoke of evil spirits snatching people, which could be interpreted through a modern lens as cultural memory of encounters with something non-human. Elsewhere, orb phenomena around geological features like volcanoes and mountains are recorded on video. The Popocatépetl volcano in Mexico is a hot spot where camera surveillance has caught flying luminous objects entering or exiting the crater. If real, this might indicate NHIs utilizing geothermal or subterranean environments, essentially interacting with our ecosystems in ways we barely catch on remote cameras. Additionally, one might consider sudden environmental changes without clear cause. For example, the abrupt death or regeneration of sections of forest with no disease evident, or inexplicable lights that coincide with animal migrations. Some bird navigational anomalies have been tied to mystery lights. While mainstream science can explain most such events via known factors, remaining puzzling cases may be worth re-examining through the NHI hypothesis. Finally, a compelling data point from recent ocean exploration shows how our biosphere still surprises us. In 2023, NOAA scientists discovered a mysterious golden orb-like object attached to a rock 3,300 meters deep off Alaska. The smooth golden-colored dome had a hole in the skin-like texture and baffled researchers. They initially guessed it might be an egg casing of some unknown creature or a type of sponge, but we're not even sure what it is. It doesn't even look like any egg we've ever seen, admitted deep-sea ecologist Carrie Howell. As of this writing, DNA tests are underway, but the object remains unidentified, potentially a new species entirely. This discovery underscores how little we know about the life in extreme environments on Earth. While the golden orb is likely part of the conventional tree of life, imagine if something like this had no DNA or belonged to no known phylum. It would be a smoking gun for a shadow biome. Even in being likely biological, the orb reminds us that novel life forms can still pop up unexpectedly. The researchers playfully quipped, "I just hope when we poke it, something doesn't decide to come out. It's like the beginning of a horror movie." The half-joking fear resonates with the shadow NHI idea. How would we react if a truly alien being emerged from such a discovery? In summary, while no single case provides definitive evidence of NHIs in a shadow biosphere, the pattern of anomalies across aerial phenomena and luminous events, unexplained encounters, and odd biological finds all hint that something is interacting with Earth beyond our current scientific framework. An NHI hypothesis ties these threads together by positing a hidden agent or agents behind certain UFOs, orbs, or perhaps rare cryptids. Jacques Vallée's statistical analysis even suggested an astonishing frequency. He estimated that around 3 million UFO landing ground contact cases occurred worldwide over a 20-year period. That number, if even remotely accurate, far exceeds what we'd expect from sporadic alien visitors. Vallée noted that this is precisely what one would expect if they were from here, simply going about their business, akin to rare native animals that humans only occasionally encounter. This again bolsters the notion that UAPs might be a widespread indigenous phenomenon, an unseen ecology or society that usually keeps its distance but is continuously active at a low level, much as foxes or owls are out there every night, largely unnoticed in the dark. Recognizing these patterns in ufology and anomalies, we turn next to considering how such a hidden NHI civilization might function, their possible infrastructure, ecology, and social organization, and how they could remain concealed. So potential NHI infrastructure and ecology models. If NHIs form a coexistent biosphere, what might it look like? We are essentially speculating on an entire parallel ecosystem or even civilization. Several non mutually exclusive models can be envisioned. So the first is likely one of the most obvious: a subterranean and submarine habitat. One classic idea is that an advanced non-human species might live underground or under the sea, away from prying human eyes. Caves, deep crustal environments, and ocean depths provide shelter and have vast area. Legends of underground cities, from Agartha in mystic lore to modern UFO claims about bases, reflect this notion. The cryptoterrestrial hypothesis paper by Lomas et al. Explicitly includes the possibility of intelligent beings concealed in stealth here on Earth, for instance, underground, and or its near environs, for instance, the moon, and or even walking among us, for instance, passing as human. If NHIs have bases or communities underground, they might tap geothermal energy and remain largely self-sufficient. It's worth noting that enormous underground structures exist in nature, for instance, the mammoth cave systems in Vietnam or New Mexico, that could potentially host large organisms. If an intelligent species took refuge there in prehistory to escape cataclysms or competition, they could have built entire cities sealed off from surface dwellers. Some ufologists point to specific locations. For instance, Dulce in New Mexico has an urban legend of an underground alien facility. And Turkey's Darien Kuyu is a real ancient multi-level underground city built by humans, but showing that sizable populations can hide below. Undersea, the ocean floor might hold domed habitats or naturally have air-filled caverns. Considering 70% of the Earth is ocean, and we've explored only a fraction, aquatic or amphibian intelligence could thrive unbeknownst to us. They might use bioluminescent windows occasionally. Could some deep sea UFO sightings or USO sonar contacts be vehicles moving between these habitats? Then there could be mimicry and integration. Another possibility is that NHIs have blended into human society to some degree. If they are biologically similar enough, perhaps they have infiltrated or walk among us in disguise. This echoes science fiction like They Live or Men in Black, but also ancient lore about shape-shifting beings. Some more serious proponents have even suggested that reports of UFO occupants who look almost human could imply a common ancestry, or they can pass as human when needed. For instance, by wearing covering clothing or being only slight variants like very tall, etc. Integrating with humans would give access to resources and hide in plain sight, but it would be difficult to maintain over long periods unless their numbers were extremely few or they had strict rules of non-interference, similar to Star Trek's Prime Directive, aliens observing primitive worlds covertly. The friendship case in Italy from the 1950s to 70s is a peculiar narrative where a group of Italians claimed contract with a subterranean race of tall beings who lived in hidden bases and periodically came into human society for specific needs. While unverified, it paints a picture of an NHI community with its own infrastructure, underground installations, cooperating with a few humans. If something like that were true, it suggests NHIs might have compartmentalized relationships with select humans while remaining unknown to the masses. Then they might have unique ecology and or a food web. A coexistent biosphere might have its own ecological network, largely separate from the known food web. If their biochemistry is different, they may not compete with familiar life for food. For instance, shadow microbes might metabolize substances no other organisms use, like certain minerals, desert varnish hinting at arsenic, manganese cycles. Similarly, intelligent NHIs might have diets and resources completely orthogonal to ours. Perhaps they derive energy from geothermal heat or directly from electromagnetic fields. Imagine creatures eating lightning or plasma. There's speculation that some orbs or UFOs seen around power lines or thunderstorms could be feeding off electrical energy. One could hypothesize an entire trophic claim, smaller plasma life forms that swarm in energy rich areas, and larger predator forms, an ecosystem of energy beings. If NHIs are of a more traditional biological nature, they might domesticate organisms from their biosphere, analogous to how we farm plants and animals. We might occasionally see traces, unexplained animal mutilations, or plant disturbances. Could be them harvesting our biosphere out of necessity or experimentation, although those phenomena could also have other explanations. A shadow biosphere intelligent species might also practice biosequestration, i.e., they hide or destroy any remains that would prove their existence, like systematically removing their dead or avoiding leaving fossils. If their ecology overlaps with ours, they would likely be careful to leave minimal footprint. Perhaps why tangible evidence is so scarce. On the other hand, they might take advantage of parts of Earth we don't. For instance, deep subterranean bacterial mats or exotic deep sea fish could be their livestock, unknown to us. Then there's infrastructure and technology. Assuming NHIs of intelligence comparable or beyond humans, they might possess technology and infrastructure. However, to remain hidden, their technology would likely be designed to avoid obvious environmental signatures. For example, if they use transportation, it may be silent, lightless, and cloaked, which aligns with many UFO descriptions. Quiet, often only visible as light or radar blip. Cloaking devices or advanced camouflage might be routine for them. Interestingly, our own scientific advances in metamaterials are inching toward making objects invisible to certain wavelengths. The NHIs might be far ahead in that game. If they have cities or bases, these could be shielded from detection by deep location or by energetic fields that spoof our instruments. Could some of the unexplained electromagnetic interference episodes, like aircraft instruments going haywire in certain spots, or the Bermuda Triangle lore of compass malfunctions, be side effects of cloaked zones? It's speculative, but one can imagine an NHI city under a mountain projecting a field that deflects radar and absorbs sound. Their power generation might be similarly subtle, perhaps tapping Earth's magnetic field or zero-point energy, anything but a smokestack or loud generator that we'd notice. The infrastructure might also extend off-planet. The crypto-terrestrial scenario includes possibly bases on the moon or hidden on other celestial bodies. If an intelligent species evolved on Earth prior to humans or parallel, they might have left to colonize near space, using Earth as a home base while interacting minimally. Some researchers have even suggested scanning the moon for artifacts. Since it's airless and static, old structures could survive. Interestingly, one comment by Luis Elizondo, the former ATIP director, recommended analyzing the moon for archaeological evidence if one suspects an ancient advanced terrestrial race, implying that if NHIs existed, they might have ventured to the moon long ago. Our detection of any such installations has been nil so far, aside from fringe interpretations of odd lunar photos. But it remains an area of interest. A truly stealthy civilization might hide not on Earth's surface, but in plain sight on the moon's far side or underground. Then there's social organization. If NHIs constitute a hidden society, what is their relationship to us and why hide? Many hypotheses abound. One is akin to the zoo hypothesis in SETI. Perhaps they intentionally keep us uninformed, observing us as we would animals in a reserve. We could be an emerging species they avoid open contact with to let us develop naturally. This often assumes they are more advanced. Another possibility is fear or strategy. Perhaps human dominance in numbers and aggression made them choose secrecy for survival. If they are fewer or physically weaker, staying mythic keeps them safe from human attack. Conversely, if they are powerful, they might simply have a policy of non-interference, except subtle influence, whether out of ethical stance or simply disinterest, treating us like we treat wildlife, mostly leaving it alone except for the occasional tagging. One could tug in cheek, like in alien abduction reports, to how we tranquilize and tag bears for study. It's also possible that multiple NHI groups with different agendas, like different species or factions, or it's also possible there are multiple NHI groups with different agendas, like different species or factions. Some might be curious and interact, leading to the rare encounters, while others are strict isolationists. If their society predates ours, perhaps they went through cycles of contact and learned it is best to retreat. There are tantalizing ancient stories that could be read as past interactions with gods living underground, to the Popol Vuh story of an earlier race of men who had superior vision and had to be blinded by the gods. All speculation aside, any NHI civilization must have rules to maintain concealment. These could include avoiding killing humans to not attract attention, or doing so only in ways that appear mundane, erasing evidence, perhaps literally via advanced cleanup crews or self destructing materials. Note how UFO crash stories often involve swift military retrieval or mysterious men in black removing evidence, which could equally be the NHIs policing their own secrecy. And stage managing encounters like the perception manipulation we discussed earlier. In essence, one can imagine the NHIs having an entire parallel society with its own networks of tunnels or portals, safe houses under mountains or sea, energy collectors, and maybe even transit systems. Who knows, maybe some of those deep earthquake mystery hums or underground rumbles are their moving vehicles or drilling operations. To maintain coexistence, they'd likely have studied us extensively, possibly more than we'd studied them, given their advantage of hiding. They might know human languages, tap our communications, or even have agents concealed or remote observers among us. This asymmetry of knowledge could explain the often surreal nature of encounters. They know precisely how to push our buttons or what cultural imagery to evoke, whereas we are utterly at a loss about their motives or nature. Crucially, a coexistent NHI ecology doesn't necessarily mean separate origin. It could be that they are distant relatives. For instance, a hypothetical scenario. Suppose some hominins or other species achieved intelligence in the distant path. So, for instance, the Atlantis myth, etc., and survived in hiding while the rest of humanity rebuilt civilization. They'd share a lot biologically with us, but might have diverged culturally and even physically due to long isolation. Or if they are truly separate life, a second genesis, they might not even recognize us as life at first, just as we have only recently considered the possibility of non-carbon life. Imagine two biochemically incompatible systems. They could literally pass through each other with minimal interaction, beyond maybe some chemical byproducts like the unexplained CO2 excess, or perhaps unexplained consumption of rare materials someplace else. They might be as oblivious to our presence as we are to theirs, except when one side's technology detects the other. But given NHIs presumably have intelligence, they likely have detected us by now through radio broadcasts, would tip them off, if not the sheer change in environment by our agriculture and cities. The big question remains, if they exist, why haven't we gotten definitive proof? The answers return to prior sections. They might be masters of hiding, and our institutions might also be in denial. But if the hypothesis is true, it's possible small leaks occur, like occasional genuine UFO events or odd biological finds that point to the truth. It may require only one incontrovertible piece of evidence, be it a captured organism, a piece of NHI technology, or an open contact to unravel the secrecy. Barring that, we have to rely on gradual improvements in detection and open-minded pattern recognition to finally illuminate this shadow biosphere. All right, so let's talk strategies for detection and recognition. How could we discover a coexistent NHI biosphere if it's real? It will require a concerted interdisciplinary approach, updating our strategies beyond conventional life detection. Here are several avenues being explored or suggested. So the first is expanded biosignatures search. Astrobiologists emphasize not to look for life only as we know it. On Earth, this means developing tests that don't assume standard DNA protein chemistry. For example, chirality tests could be conducted widely in the environment. If we found a bunch of right-handed amino acids making up a molecule, that would be a clue. Instruments that detect broad classes of organic molecules, not just those that match known DNA RNA, could catch weird biopolymers. Some researchers propose using high throughput sequencing techniques that amplify any polymer, not just known genomes, to see if shadow genes appear. Additionally, environmental measurements of metabolic gases like the carbon cycle discrepancy should be refined if we can map unexplained chemical or isotopic anomalies, for instance, odd depletion of certain minerals only in specific niches. These might be footprints of unknown metabolism. One practical step: systematically sample extreme environments, deep mines, boiling springs above 122 degrees centigrade, hyperalkaline lakes, etc., and perform agnostic analysis. Look at any structures or replicating systems present, even if they don't respond to normal stains or DNA tests. NASA's 2007 report, Weird Life, called for exactly that approach: design detection that assumes any local decrease in entropy order formation with no obvious abiotic cause might indicate life. Then they could also use advanced sensor networks for UAP orb monitoring. On the technological side, given the surge in UAP interest, scientists are setting up better monitoring. Projects like the Galileo project, led by Harvard's Avi Loeb, aim to deploy telescopes and sensors to capture high-quality data on unidentified area phenomena. Similarly, the Hessdalen Automatic Station has been recording data on orbs for years. Expanding such networks, multispectral cameras, radar, infrared, magnetometers in hotspot areas could yield patterns. If NHIs are operating craft or plasma entities, consistent observation might detect telltale signatures. For instance, a unique electromagnetic frequency or gravity fluctuation when they appear. Some have suggested using machine learning to sift through satellite imagery or air traffic data to spot anomalies that were previously missed. In the ocean, placing hydrophones and autonomous submersibles in areas of frequent USO reports, like off Puerto Rico or near Catalina Island in California, could catch high-speed underwater signals. Essentially, treat it like wildlife tracking. If an elusive animal is suspected, you set up camera traps. Here, our traps are sophisticated sensing equipment tuned to catch the unusual. The key is an attitude shift, moving beyond ridicule to genuine scientific curiosity, which is slowly happening as government and academic entities acknowledge UAP as real phenomenon, even if origins unknown. And then there's collaboration with citizen observers. Given many encounters are serendipitous, crowdsourcing detection can help. So, as an example, encouraging amateur astronomers to report any strange fast movers they see. They're always looking up. Or encounters, or encouraging pilots and even automated aviation systems to flag non-cooperative targets. There are now smartphone apps for sky watchers to document UFO sightings with standardized data. If NHIs are behind some sightings, increasing the volume and quality of reports statistically improves chances of catching them. Citizen scientists might also help in biological realms, training volunteer microscopists or naturalists to note weird observations, like organisms that don't stain or culture normally, and funnel those to researchers. Just as SETI at home leveraged distributive computing to search for ET signals, one can envision a shadow life detection at home initiative where people around the world collect environmental samples and run simple tests like chiral analysis kits to flag anomalies. Then there's laboratory simulation experiments. To understand possible weird life, some scientists try to create it. Oh boy, sounds like Fauci to me. For instance, researchers have synthesized mirror image versions of E. coli to see if mirroviruses appear. One group at Harvard did this to test immune interference. Others are building cells with alternative genetic molecules, XNA instead of DNA. If these can survive, it suggests life could exist that way. By pushing the boundaries of artificial life in labs, we refine our sense for what to look for outside. Additionally, experiments like sending balloons to the stratosphere to culture any microbes there, or drilling deeper than ever into the crust, extend our reach. Genomics has a role too. If a microbe is truly a shadow, no genetic relation, it won't fit on the tree of life. By sequencing environmental DNA, eDNA, from various places, any formal sequence that is completely unrelatable to known life could be a candidate, though contamination and data error must be ruled out. So far, all DNA found falls under known domains: bacteria, archaea, eukaryotes, but we may need techniques to catch life with no DNA at all. For instance, detecting metabolic byproducts unique to alternative biochemistry. Then there are consciousness and ESP approaches. A controversial but interesting angle is using human consciousness itself as a tool, given the reports that NHIs might interact mentally. For instance, if some experiences claim telepathic communication during encounters, perhaps controlled experiments in altered states like deep meditation, sensory deprivation, or using methods from remote viewing research could attempt to detect intelligences. While not conventional science, the domain of consciousness studies suggests humans might access information beyond the five senses, albeit unproven. If NHIs can interface that way, training certain individuals or AI mimicking brain patterns to be sensitive to such contact might bear fruit. Even mainstream research could play a part, monitoring brainwaves of people during claimed encounters to see if any unusual patterns that could hint at an external signal occur. Somewhat like how we'd use instruments to detect radio, but here using the brain as an antenna. Again, highly speculative, but given the high strangeness element in many close encounters, it might be worth scientific attention instead of dismissal. And then policy and openness. On a procedural note, it's vital that institutions foster an open but rigorous search. Government transparency on UAP reports, declassification of anomalous data, and interdisciplinary forums where biologists talk with physicists and UFO investigators all will help. If evidence of NHIs emerges, it may not be immediately recognized without cross-pollination of expertise. For example, a geologist might have data on unusual readings in a cave that mean nothing to them, but to a biochemist, it screams metabolism. Or military radar archives might hold clues of repeated odd craft routes that, if shared with ecologists, could be interpreted as migratory patterns of something unknown. Encouraging agencies and scientists to treat anomalies not as embarrassments but as puzzles is key. In essence, describing an unseen co-inhabiting intelligence requires thinking outside traditional silos. It demands both improving our technical means to catch the subtle and being mentally prepared to recognize something truly alien. As one writer put it, remain alert for phenomenon that makes us say not eureka, but that's weird. And then consider that their explanation might in fact be very, very weird. That mindset, coupled with better tools, gives us our best shot at confirming or refuting the shadow biome NHI hypothesis in the coming years. Implications for astrobiology and human understanding. Contemplating and potentially discovering a coexistent NHI biosphere on Earth would have profound consequences. For astrobiology, it would revolutionize our approach to the search for life in the universe. If we find two separate life lineages on one planet, it strongly implies that life could start anywhere conditions allow. Life might be a cosmic imperative rather than a fluke. This would energize efforts to look for biosignatures on Earth, icy moons, and exoplanets, with the expectation that if it happened twice here, it's likely everywhere. Furthermore, it would broaden what signatures we look for, knowing that life can exist in forms we didn't previously recognize. For instance, weird chemistry or in unusual niches means our imaginations and instruments might broaden. For instance, astrobiologists might design probes to detect non-standard cell structure or exotic mineral coatings like desert varnish equivalents on other worlds, not just organics and water. It would underscore the importance of missions that do in situ analysis on other planets. A life form could exist that doesn't trigger a simple organic molecule test, but might show up under a flexible lab setting. The presence of NHIs on Earth would also impact the famous Fermi paradox. Where is everybody regarding extraterrestrials? One answer might be they're here, just not how we expected. It could lend credence to solutions like the zoo hypothesis, aliens are deliberately avoiding open contact, or the idea that advanced species might prefer covert observation of developing civilizations. Perhaps Earth has been part of a galactic ecosystem all along, but we were, like ants, unaware of the humans studying the anthill. It also might mean that interstellar travel isn't necessary to find company. Maybe the cosmos teems with life, but each biosphere has enough complexity, including intelligences, that visiting others is rarely done. For those thinking about SETI, it might shift focus from solely listening for distant signals to also scanning close to home for any hidden presences. So, for instance, looking carefully at Earth's co-orbital asteroids or Lagrange points, where some speculate alien probes could lurk unnoticed, a notion called the Sentinel hypothesis. If NHIs are here, the line between astrobiology and terrestrial biology dissolves. Studying Earth's unknown life becomes as important as looking outward. For human understanding, the confirmation of non-human intelligence sharing our planet would be a paradigm shift, perhaps rivaled only by Copernicus or Darwin's revelations. It would force us to reconsider our place in the hierarchy of life, no longer the sole tech-capable species. We'd face perhaps a humbling reality that we are not the first, not the only, and maybe not the smartest minds on Earth. Philosophically, it challenges anthropocentrism and our concept of personhood. We might have to extend legal and moral consideration to these NHIs if they want it, grappling with interspecies ethics and diplomacy. Culturally, it could validate a lot of indigenous and ancient knowledge systems that spoke of hidden people or nature spirits. What was myth may turn to a form of reality, prompting a reevaluation of folklore as potentially containing coded observations of NHIs. There could also be spiritual or existential impact. Some might see NHIs as akin to angels or demons, as historically anything non-human and intelligent was framed in religious terms. It could blur the boundaries between material and spiritual discussions. For instance, are some ghost sightings actually encounters with partially visible NHIs? Were some religious experiences encountered with these beings through a cultural lens? The questions would arise, potentially revolutionizing theology and metaphysics by adding new actors to the narrative of human existence. On a practical level, consider the societal reaction. Initial shock and even fear might occur. Fear of the unknown or mistrust. Have they been spying on us? Are we in danger? But with careful handling. It could also be exhilarating and inspiring. Humanity might unify more, an us and them dynamic where all humans are on the same team for once, in contrast to a more advanced other, though ideally without hostility. The opportunity to exchange knowledge could be profound. NHIs might hold keys to sciences we're struggling with. Perhaps they long ago solved energy issues or environmental balance. Conversely, our perspective could enrich them if they've been isolated. However, a negative scenario is possible if, say, NHIs were found to be hostile or if humans reacted aggressively. Managing contact would thus become a delicate process, likely requiring international cooperation and new protocols, perhaps an extension of the Outer Space Treaty concepts to interspace intelligences. There are also implications for the future of humanity. Knowing another intelligence made it through various hurdles, assuming they're ancient, could provide a model or hope for our own survival. They didn't destroy themselves, so maybe we can avoid it too. It could also pose risks. If they see us as a threat, especially now that we're changing the planet's climate, or deploying nuclear weapons, etc., they might intervene. Some UFO lore suggests increased sightings around nuclear sites, giving rise to theories NHIs are monitoring or even preventing nuclear conflict, essentially acting as hidden stewards. If true, acknowledging them might lead to negotiations about such global issues, effectively gaining mentors or minders. For science, the methodology might undergo a transformation as well. We'd have a tangible example of an independent evolution or alternative physics, providing data to refine evolutionary theory, perhaps discover new principles of consciousness, especially if NHIs have different cognitive substrates. It would be the ultimate outgroup comparison to test our theories of intelligence, language, society, etc. The field of xenobiology would become a local field study rather than a speculative discipline. Finally, the very discovery process would underscore an important issue: the value of open-minded, integrative inquiry. It would vindicate those who advocate exploring anomalies despite ridicule. Science would hopefully become more interdisciplinary and tolerant of studying the fringes, since one of those fringes yielded world-shattering insight. The phrase absence of evidence is not evidence of absence would ring especially true. Just because something remained hidden doesn't mean it wasn't there, which urges humility in all our claims of understanding. As one essay concluded, if we look for life or intelligence only as we know it, that's all we're going to find. Embracing the philosophy could open new horizons far beyond just the NHI question. It could drive innovation in how we search for any unknown phenomena. The speculative hypothesis of a shadow biome inhabited by non-human intelligences invites us to expand our scientific and philosophical imagination. It sits at the intersection of a frontier, biology, theoretical physics, consciousness research, and the enigma of UFOs, asking us to render assumptions about life and intelligence. We have traced how such a hidden biosphere might be plausible. Earth could harbor life forms with radically different biochemistry or existing partly in domains we cannot perceive. Historical anecdotes and modern UAP observations provide tantalizing limits that something unusual shares our environment, even if definitive proof remains elusive. Pursuing this hypothesis is not a flight from reason, but an exercise of it. It demands rigorous evidence gathering and the courage to question established paradigms in light of anomalies. As we improve our tools and our mindset for detection, the coming years may yield breakthroughs, perhaps a microbial culture that proves to be truly alien, or a high-fidelity sensor capable of an NHI capture of an NHI craft or being. The implications of success would be staggering, forcing humanity in perhaps the most significant dialogue of all, one between intelligent species co-evolving on the same planet. Even if the shadow biome of NHIs remains unconfirmed, the value of the journey is clear. It drives innovation in how we search for life, making us better astrobiologists and more reflective observers of our world. It also cultivates a sense of humility and wonder, a reminder that even in 2025, our knowledge of Earth is incomplete, and the universe, possibly even our own backyard, may hold surprises that challenge the very core of our understanding. As we stand on this precipice of discovery, the wise approach is to remain curious, vigilant, and open to the truly unexpected. In the words of pioneering thinkers in this arena, we must have epistemological humility, neither accepting wild claims without proof nor dismissing possibilities because they don't fit our current worldview. With that balance, we move forward, eyes and minds wide open, into realms of knowledge formerly shadowed, perhaps soon to be illuminated by the light of discovery. All right, folks. That's it, and that's all. All right, so time for the comments. Man, oh, my eye is killing me for some reason. All right. Hey, nice to see you, Stone Hobbit. Yeah, Eric Petersman 1389 is wondering if 5G is involved somehow. Who knows? The Pryor Mountains. Larch 9851. Say more, please. All right, Sinner 1337 is saying when UFOs just into gas sublimate. When UFOs just turn into gas sublimate. Yeah, could be an example. Yep, the Larch 9851 is saying the little people. And then Sinner 1337, yeah, but when they shapeshift into planes and spray chemtrails for control, who knows? Roger Claiborne is saying consciousness is a fourth dimension. He continues with UFOs in the past look lower tech than today's UFOs, so those at least are likely our breakaway civilization here on Earth. Or they're just using people's consciousness to display themselves, right? That could also explain that. Roger Claiborne continues, I saw a needle-sized and shaped clear UFO once with different color lights flickering inside under LED flashlight. Called my mom out to witness it. It seemed real to my mind and copied my thoughts on it. I call these things potentials that seem to wait for us to name and describe what they will be. Hey, Arizona Raven 419, good to see you. Yeah, Soulite US expat. Yes, please hit the like button. In fact, you give me the reminder I need. Just throw that down there. It shouldn't be too obtrusive. Now I gotta find where the heck I was. There we go. Okay, so Jalay Jalal writes, I have photographed substantial fires on film several times, and the fire was not visible whatsoever. Once on the altar of a Catholic church when the building was empty, setting up wedding flowers. That's crazy. So large slush 9851. There's a time portal located in Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. There's definitely portals there. I interviewed David Morehouse, who, when he was working for the Defense Intelligence Agency, they took a bunch of people there and they could see portals opening up in the sky over Chaco Canyon. Okay, so Roger Claiborne saying take an LED flashlight out each night and put it on spotlight mode and see the invisible above you under its beam. That's how I spotted the curious and playful needle-sized UFO. Okay. Yeah, Brown Mountain Lights near North Carolina could be one of them. Jalay Jalal writes, Courtney Brown, PhD at the Farsight Institute, gives free instruction to modify a commercial camera which picks up non-visible phenomenon anywhere you point it. Interesting. Okay, Roger Claiborne said, just got to take out the infrared light filter on digital cameras to see near infrared stuff. So Josh 1 billion saying, I have one of those cameras but haven't had any luck with it. Okay. Yeah, Kill the Stigma podcast is saying, nice man, your subscribers went up by a lot since last time I was here, which wasn't long ago. Congratulations. Thank you. I can hit, I mean, look, it would be a miracle if I hit 100,000 by the end of the year, but hitting 20,000 by the end of the year would still be a good achievement. Okay, this guy is clear and acute. Raleigh Smalls. I don't know what that means, but I think it's a compliment. Okay, I want to try some diacetyl dye filter glasses. Yeah, that's fair. McDoctor Glock. I like that name. Okay, so Roger Claiborne said it could be made of quantum particles other than the particles making atoms, could feed on other quantum particle creatures similar to them. Some of the big enough ones to reach our size might perceive us. Who knows? Yep, Curlian Evan Hudson is saying Curlian photography is interesting. Yep, that's the one that shows auras. He also wants diacetyl goggles. Okay, so Roger Claiborne saying there's an invisible quantum soup all around us. It's pure folly to think some kind of life might not evolve from it, and in it made of particles without protons and neutrons. Yeah. Okay, so Crazy Cal says I'm really looking forward to the Chaos Magician. I can't wait for that interview. Yeah, it's experimental. I mean, Peter Carroll is awesome, but he doesn't show his face in interviews. So I used a new AI program to create an avatar for him, and then it just syncs. It's pretty interesting. So I hope people don't reject that. So McDoctor Glock said, I saw a silver sphere fly over my wing one night about 25 years ago. It didn't glow, it just passed over the wing as I overtook it. But I didn't see it until it was beside me. Then a second later, it was gone. That's interesting. Yeah. Crazy Cal 2 is saying, messing around with DNA sounds like the plot line to Pluribus or COVID. Well, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. No more. Don't start talking about that topic in the. All right, so Roger Claiborne saying our matter has an opposite antimatter equivalent potential that can cancel each other out, or perhaps there is a third phase of matter that doesn't. Well, the problem with an antiparticle is that when like an antiproton meeting a proton unlocks. I mean, they annihilate each other. That's the problem with antimatter. Creates a lot of energy, but it just annihilates. Onside, howdy, good to see you again, man. Okay, so Roger Claiborne again. Lots of strange stuff gets seen by credible people, and some see things never reported on before. Makes you wonder. Okay. Okay, so me three. Yeah, I will try, but I also want to get through the entire script. So I had like a 25-page script, and I didn't think I was going to get through it. So yes, I will I can slow it down. That's fine. It's fair feedback. Okay, so Cambodia, wait, Cambodia Remy Zero. Dude, I love your interviews with people. What I think you should get a pretty girl to read this transcripts maybe each week. I mean, I could make an AI avatar to read them, maybe. But it would take more time to prepare than anything else. So NHI are not our so like Green One, NHI are not our friends, and they are not here to help. Friends don't sneak around and kidnap people from their bedrooms. Are you talking about NHI or the FBI? It's hard to tell the difference. So Logan, you're late. Oh my God, I was watching Death by Lightning and forgot about the live. No worries. You know who's also late? Gray Owl. So I think you slipped under the radar. Okay, so Tristan Kelly is saying I've given more consideration in recent years to the possibility of an intelligent indigenous species that evolved in the interior of the Earth. Yeah, it's definitely possible. So WMD 222 H cross C, I guess, or HXC. It would be awesome to get Museum of Tarot on the show. Yeah, I should look into it. That's been like people have recommended Museum of Tarot multiple times, so we'll definitely take a look. But thank God, I think I'm all caught up on comments. So yeah, the channel is finally Oh, I didn't tell you this story. So my live stream with Richard Geldrich. Well, that's a synchronicity. Literally, like, I didn't even see your comment, like Green One, and you're already talking about Richard Geldrich. So my January live stream with Richard Geldrich, and in 2025, this year, is no longer on Twitter. It just vanished. And I think it's because we were on target. Either that or just Twitter, like X is just sloppy. But that was all about the drones, like the drones over Lake and Heath and nuclear facilities all over the United States. So Fred62 is saying, have you heard of the Duende story of the kids that got lost in the woods for 40 months after a plane crash? I have not. Okay. What's the most interesting debrief you have done so far in the future forecasting group? Solite US expat is saying most interesting debrief. Probably the next one I'm gonna do, and I'll just give a little hint. So in World War II, there was they were trying to reinforce bombers flying over both Germany and Japan. And they would look to see where kind of the bombers were getting the most hits and reinforce those areas. But there was someone at like a statistical office at Columbia University that said, guys, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Like you're getting survivorship bias. We have to reinforce the areas that don't have any bullets. The reason being is that those locations don't have bullets because the aircraft that didn't survive. So sometimes when you're doing a remote viewing, you're looking at a target, and the target, nobody sees the target. Sometimes it's because the target is no longer there. And the one that I haven't recorded yet is a case like that. So that's all I'm going to say, but it's pretty creepy. And then there are things that around it that suggest why the target is no longer there. So that's my favorite one so far. But sorry I couldn't be more. The viewers don't even know what the target. I didn't know what the target was until the viewers, because we do a double blind. But I just finished my analysis I finished my analysis yesterday, but I haven't recorded, so the viewers don't know what the target is yet. I do, but yeah. So Light Green One says no one is more over the target than Rich Gill. Yeah, which is why that episode was taken down. I don't know if it was taken down or it's just not on X anymore, and I can't re-upload it. X won't let me re-upload it. Let me see. Okay. Okay, so M3 Awakening is saying, I feel like a few of the most honest modern sources, in my opinion, have been Dr. Carla Turner, Eve Lorgren, Danielle Silverman, Nathaniel Gillis, James Bartley, and Philip Kinsella. Yeah, Philip Kinsella's name came up in an interview I did today, actually. That's another weird synchronicity. And we were at 1111 in terms of the number of people on here. So, well, but it's still on YouTube. You can find that video on YouTube. So it's fine for YouTube. So I'm not 100% sure that there's anything like suspicious about it. So sorry for people who are listening. Crazy Cal is saying if you're hitting too close to target, they'll definitely remove the videos. They didn't. So it could also just be a glitch in X. After a certain time period, your videos just disappear. So yeah, I literally I do have a freaking pet bear, which is basically a developmentally disabled child. Yeah, my wife failed again. She fails every week at this task. It's not that hard. Just give me a second. All right, you're still going to hear like the exorcism in the background, but my apologies. Okay. Yeah, actually, Morehouse sent me an email earlier this week. I just haven't gotten a chance to respond. I'll probably reach out to him tomorrow. I don't know if the Arantia one, while reading from an AI script, sounds authentic. I don't know if that's sarcasm or not. I hope it's not. If it's not sarcasm, thank you. But it could. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. Okay. Anyway, all right. The bear is gone, so you shouldn't hear the bear anymore. Unreal. And I can't. I mean, I could kind of get up and move, but obviously, you all would lose lose airtime and whatnot. So I'm trying to think what else. Oh yeah, but I do have a Richard Geldrich episode actually. It's been in the quiver for a while. So I think it comes out, it's either this month or first half of next month. But if you just go and look at my content, you can see what actually I'll just go. It's not like I still have to get through a whole script. I'll just tell you when that one's coming out. Da, da, da. December 8th. I have an episode with Richard Geldrich. And then the 2 Peter J. Carroll episodes are December 10th and 15th. And then let's see who else is in the future. We have another Mark Stavish video on Monday, and then I have another Stephen Mera video on Wednesday, November 19th, and then another Stephen Mera video on November 24th. I have 2 videos, the first of which is November 26th with Anthony Peake, and then the second video with Anthony Peake is December 1st. I have another video with Nathaniel Gillis that'll drop on December 3rd, and that's it. So I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ooh, I'm getting within a month. That's not good. I have about 9. The next 9 videos are kind of already pre-planned. That's about a month and a day, or a month and an eighth of content ready. So yeah, and then I'm currently editing another video that I did today, and then I have, I think, 4 other episodes that I've scheduled with folks to do the interviews for. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Yeah, Soulite USX, but yeah, my first interview, yeah, with Johnny hit 20K. Not bad. Can't wait to see. Yeah, I can't have him on too often, otherwise it'll dilute the the power of it. But I definitely have him on again. There's no doubt about it. If I could commission a remote viewing session, what target would you give? That's a good question. So, have I interviewed Eve Lorgan? No, I haven't actually. Let me actually look her up. I still haven't answered the remote viewing session. I have no idea what I would. Honestly, I have no idea what I would remote view. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Who that is? Let me look it up. Okay. Okay, so she defines and works with the notion of anomalous trauma, traumatic events out of the normal human experience. So, for instance, alien abductions, my lab, spiritual warfare, psychic attacks. One of her more distinctive contributions is the concept of the love bite, a term she uses for alleged interference by non human intelligences or orchestrated by them in human love relationships, bonding, pairings, and emotional sexual dynamics. She also explores themes such as energy, vampirism, non consensual coupling, spiritual psychic manipulation, and the intersection of abduction phenomena with intimate relationships. Well, that's interesting. But she holds a master's degrees in counseling psychology and earlier earned a BS in biochemistry. Very interesting. Yeah, I should. That could be an interesting interview. Yeah, so I'll look into it. All right, so okay, so what remote viewing target would I look at? It would definitely be anomalous. Um, I don't know. Mm, I mean, the Roswell crash has been done a million times. It would probably be like what's in Area 51 or something like that. But that's I feel like that's a cop out. Jim Bob Heller, do I find it strange how many people are optimistic about this phenomenon? Not at all. Not at all. I'll tell you why in a second. So M Awakening 936 say, I think she would tie a whole lot of stuff together for you and your viewers' audience. Yeah, maybe. But no, I don't find it strange because most people aren't optimistic about humans. I'm not. I mean, I'm I'm less afraid of the phenomenon than I am of people. People freak me out. They're crazy. Uh, so yeah, I don't find it strange at all. I mean, it's probably not a good thing, but yeah, Courtney Brown. Yeah, I know a bunch of people have reviewed it, so which is why I thought my answer was a bit of a cop out. But I just that's something I would be very thoughtful about that before I did anything with it. Um, what else? There's a legend. So Select US Expat is saying there's the alleged secret Space Force base in Huntsville, Alabama, under some mountain, as I recall. Could be interesting. Maybe. So RV building the Great Pyramids of the Sphinx and how they move those huge. Yeah, that would be a good one. That would definitely be a worthwhile remote viewing session. I agree with that. But again, I would have to think. I would have to spend more time. I mean, I've done it before. Like I wanted to see the last crash retrieval on U.S. soil. So Daz Smith and his team did one for me on that, and then presented. It's pretty cool stuff. Um, I read Fred Atwater's Project 8200, and since then I've been really intrigued by Mount Hayes. Yeah, Mount Hayes is it's a weird place. Yeah, so Daz and Dick Algier remote viewed how the pyramids were built when they were with Courtney Brown, or the RV, the underwater UFO base in the Puerto Rico Trench. Let's see. All right, what else? What else do we got going on? See what's going on next. All right, so Solite US Expat, what topics might you be interested in to find more about, and maybe we can figure out some people. Uh, I kind of want to see if some of this stuff works, like chaos magic and things like that. Like that's kind of where I am. Problem is I'm so busy that I don't have time to do any of that stuff. Like I woke up this morning and it was just like, woke up at 7 and then immediately start like interviewed somebody, and then I've been processing that episode until the moment I got on this live stream. And then as soon as I get off this live stream, I want to try to finish that episode. I'm doing like a time study on how long it takes me to produce an episode so I can find ways to make my process more efficient, very like business like, all that kind of stuff. But it's just like I'm so busy that I don't have any time to like take a break or explore anything. But hopefully this channel gets big enough someday that it's the only thing that I have to do. But we'll see. But you can help me out with if you look in the description, if you buy Hellhold and Other Stories and Necromancer and Other Stories, my two latest anthology or collections. So I'd appreciate if you did. I don't think anybody is, but it is what it is. Okay, so Megan from Solar Glow Meditations would be a good guest interview. She was using dowsing rods to answer yes, no questions. I was skeptical, but saw her do Q&A live, and it was legit. Interesting. Oh. Yeah, the one time I tried to use augury to make money in crypto is blowing up in my face right now. I haven't lost any money because I haven't sold anything, but I'm getting destroyed. So it is what it is. I didn't put any amount of money in there that that I couldn't afford to lose, but it's pretty annoying. In December, I interview him. He's on the list. It's at like a awful time though, because he can only do like during the week, and like my schedule during the week is absolute like it can be blown up at any time, and I would have no control over it. So we'll see. I would love to get Diana Walsh Pasolka on, but she never responds to my requests. So, and she's been on smaller podcasts. So I don't know what the deal is. I mean, I'll keep trying, but it is what it is. Anybody following the whole Kelly Chase thing? I really wish I knew what actually happened. Otherwise, it's just like the suspension of disbelief it requires is a little bit too high for me to support. Let's say. So Solite US Expat is saying, what about chi masters that could do amazing things? That could be fun to interview one of those masters. Yep, maybe. Oh man. So Crazy Cal said, I wrote a book, a handwritten book about all the paranormal experiences I had growing up and up to the present, but I ended up destroying it because it was just too dark, and I live in Georgia. Interesting. I don't know. I would have kept that thing. Yeah. Light Green says, I think he's talked about Pasolka. She's a gatekeeper and was a wannabe insider and a game player. So she's so sus. Yeah, maybe. I don't. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to talk to her, so I can't really say because I very definitely am not an insider. That's like the opposite of what I am. I kind of go my own way because I have to. Because a lot of people, most of the people in this game are just lying to you. Oh, not Pasolka. So you're talking Kelly Chase. Let's see. Let me go back to your. Yeah, she's a gatekeeper and was a wannabe insider and a game player. Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I don't know. I don't know. Like I've interviewed her before, and she seemed nice enough. I don't know what to make of all those. So uh, Kelly Chase had like the UFO podcast, or I can't remember what it was called. Now it's called Cosmosis. She claims that she stumbled onto something in among these UFO gatekeepers that was like worse than like sexual assault, the death of her father, and something else combined. Like it seems so. And then also explained it as Kafka-esque, right? When somebody says Kafka-esque, I think of Metamorphosis and like a guy that wakes up as a cockroach. Like that's Kafka-esque. So I it's just extreme surreal. I don't know. It doesn't unless you tell me details. I can't. Well, yeah, I can reach out to Eve Lorgan. Sure. Raymond Grace. So Crazy Cal said if I want to talk to a dowser, I should talk to Raymond Grace. Okay. All right. Any final questions? I think it's time. It's the top of the hour. Time for me to go. Yeah, like Tim. So Hilo FS. Tim Taylor and Diana Pasolka are very interesting. Chris Bledsoe got inside NASA because of Tim and Diana. Yep, Diana never responds to my emails, and Tim Taylor, I don't even know how to get a hold of him. So yeah, I would love to interview either of them, but I think when Kelly Chase talks about the lists of the go and no go podcasters, I am probably on the no go list because I'm not. I'm too independent would be my guess. So anyway, all it's time for me to go. So good night. God bless. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend and an amazing week next week. So let's see. So just really quick, Crazy Cal, I went to a Raymond Grace workshop. I had an experience in there where I could see the auras of everybody inside that room, and I never had an experience like that before or since. Interesting. Thank you very much, Joshua and Billion. If given $1 billion, what would I do? I would do this only on a bigger scale. So I would actually travel to hot spots, have like a video crew, record, and I would definitely write a lot more books in my day, and I would also have time to get in shape. That's what I would do with $1 billion. And I would probably buy a house in the mountains, and that's it. And a practical car, right? We have like one car. I could afford more, but I uh, I don't like. I want to have enough money so I could do this full time, and I'm not at that point yet. without watching, savings go down. I mean, I have enough to do it for years, but not permanently unless this channel would take off. But that's what I would do. I would kind of do some variation of this only on a grander scale. And I would also take a huge percentage of that money and put it in a dividend fund so that I just had regular income and I would just live off the regular income, not the $1 billion. So, and then invest in, some charity off the gain on the investment. So anyway, thank you. Have a great rest of your weekend. Good night and God bless.